I'd like to welcome everyone this evening if you're joining us from the Northern Hemisphere, and this morning if you're joining us from Australia and New Zealand. My name is Rebecca Keeble. I am the Regional Director for IFAW in Oceania and based in Sydney, Australia. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to joining us this morning for this incredible tour, behind the scenes tour of our partners project in Bonorong Wildlife Sanctuary in Tasmania. Unfortunately, as we all know, the pandemic at this point in time prevents us all from travelling, but this is such an awesome way of us all connecting and being able to bring a slice of Australia to you wherever you are today. I wanted to start off with a bit of housekeeping. This is an interactive tour, so during the presentation, we'll be able to stop for some questions. There's a function at the bottom of your screen that allows for you to type in some Q&A. So please use that. We have a team moderating and I'll be able to call out some of the questions. We won't be able to get to them all, but we will have a team that will be able to respond to you at some point. I would, just before I introduce Greg, a bit of background to how we came to partner with Bonorong. A few years ago, our team met with Greg and his team, and we were able to support the building of Tasmania's first wildlife hospital. We're very thrilled to be able to do that. And thanks to the generous and ongoing support of our incredible supporters around the world, we're able to now provide veterinary capacity to have at that hospital. And we're going to go inside and check out what they're up to today as well. I'd really love to introduce you all now to the director, Greg Ines, and his team, and he's going to take us around for today's tour. So over to you, Greg.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Beck. Well, first of all, thanks everyone for coming to join us. It's a bit chilly this morning here in beautiful, beautiful Tasmania, a lovely, lovely neck of the woods. But, you know, I think that's the one thing about the whole COVID situation. It's been so nice to connect in this way with so many people in so many different places. And let's be honest, it's probably made us think outside the square a little bit. And, you know, ideas like this come forward. And, you know, we're just really excited to share what we do with all of you good folks today. We'd obviously love to have you here and show you in person, but this is the next best thing. So a tiny bit about us, first of all. So as Beck mentioned, my name's Greg, and I've been here for about 15 years, so slowly becoming part of the furniture here. It's been an amazing 15 years, an incredible 15 years, seeing the changes for wildlife in our wonderful state. And for those that might not be aware of Tasmania, no, it's not Tanzania in Africa. It's beautiful Tasmania, down the very bottom end of Australia, down near Antarctica. It's a wonderful island that provides a refuge to so many different species. And Australia, sadly, has not had a great record with mammal extinctions. We currently have the world record, which is something we're not proud of, for mammal extinctions in the last 200 years, seeing some 24 mammals disappear, which is unbelievably disappointing. But if it weren't for Tasmania, that number would be a lot higher. Having that beautiful little buffer of water, Bass Strait, leading in from Victoria to Tasmania, has kept us safe from things like foxes and other issues going on. So we have a whole lot of animals here that are now nowhere else in the world and become very big responsibility. Now, the wildlife here is something I can't even begin to explain. It doesn't matter where you live, you will likely have wildlife in your backyard in Tasmania. We live in very close contact with the animals here, and that in turn, sadly, means that those animals will be affected by us. And all around the world, I think all of you will understand that animals so regularly come second to us as humans. So, you know, obviously we've got a responsibility to do what we can to help them out. And in Tasmania, we'd never had a wildlife rescue service in our history. I think probably just being surrounded by wildlife all the time, Tasmanians didn't probably appreciate how marvellous that was and how special that was. And you know, things like roadkill on the roads is just an everyday part of life. And that's something that we really shouldn't accept, and something we need to do better, and something we are striving very hard to do better. But First step was a rescue service, which we worked really, really hard to set up. And I love saying that at this stage, we deal with around 11,000 animals a year that need our assistance. And we get to 98% of the calls we receive, which is a stat we're really proud of. But there was still a massive hole, and the dream for us was to see a wildlife hospital set up for these animals in need. And look, it's wonderful saving wildlife from very precarious situations and helping them survive or easing their suffering. But unfortunately, the other problem in Tassie is we didn't have a dedicated facility nor people with the skills to actually treat the animals once they were rescued. So it was left to wildlife carers to do the best they could, often without medications and often without proper diagnosis and a bit of guess and check, which is really not a great situation to be in. So when this idea was hatched to the Wildlife Hospital, which in reality was probably been discussed for 20, 25 years in Tasmania, we knew we couldn't do it by ourselves and we needed to get some people on board. And that's where IFAW stepped into the picture, and what a relationship it's been. I really look forward to chatting a little bit more about that as we go. But essentially our wonderful little hospital here would not have been possible without IFAW. And without IFAW, we would not be seeing literally hundreds of thousands of animals that need the assistance in here every single year being helped. But of course, IFAW is nothing without all of you good people. So essentially, what I want to say before we even go inside and have a little look today and share some of the special species with you is I want you to remember that you, every single one of you, are a really important part of every single animal that we look after in here. You know, it's probably very hard to feel connected sitting in your offices or your lounge rooms or wherever you are around the world to feel connected to the good that you're achieving. But essentially, without your donations, without sharing the posts that IFAW have on social media, and without telling people about IFAW, things like this simply don't happen. So every animal we save, every animal we ease the suffering of, that is partly thanks to all of you. So I thank you very, very much for that. Now, the plan for today, we're going to whiz you inside and have a quick look at our little setup, see if there's anything on the table ready to go. It's uncensored in there, of course. There's all sorts of marvellous things happening in there. So we'll meet one of our vets who does a marvellous job and just go over the sort of things that might happen in there today. We're then going to wander around and meet a few of Tassie's favourites, favourite little animals, and then we'll check back in with the clinic again to see what's going on. And Beck, I'll try to have some question time as we're walking between, and Beck will throw some questions at me, and I'll do my best to either give you a good answer or make up an answer that sounds very good at the very least. So, all right, let's head on inside and have a little look. All right, so it's a very simple operation that we run. The big benefits are no dogs and cats, okay, of course, so we don't have to deal with the smells and the sounds of them. And more importantly, not a waiting room full of people that are getting angry because they're waiting because wildlife's come in that needs assistance. So wildlife only, wildlife comes first. And look, you know, if an animal takes a good hour to go over everything and see what's wrong with them, then we can give them that time. Animals hide their injuries. That's a massive problem. So they might be desperately hurt. We put them in front of us to have a look and they quickly just pretend everything's fine. Okay, don't want to be spotted by a predator being injured. Okay, so we have to do an incredible amount of work just trying to get to the roots of what's wrong with an issue. X-rays, blood samples, checking all the function of livers and all sorts of things to get to the bottom of it before we can work it out. Let's head on in. All right, so in here is just, yes, like a little, almost a research area and just a bit of office space for the guys. So just over here, which we have a little shine on, we've got things like a big centrifuge here for bloods. This will do a lot of analysis on those bloods and do the things that it needs to do. And just little bits and pieces that we might need as part of the procedures. Coming on through a bit further. All right, so if you come just over here, so we look back. All right, so this is our little X-ray facility. Now, I cannot state enough how important this part of it is. Look, I think in the past, probably less than 1 in 100 animals that we would see were actually being X-rayed. And really, with animals hiding their injuries so well, every animal that comes through here pretty much needs an X-ray, so we can see that something hasn't been missed or whether something more untoward's going on. So incredibly important part of what we do. And again, just having the time to do that as we need to is just really, really important. Now, let me introduce you to a couple of our team here. It does look like we do have something on the table there. Hello, Dr. Alex and Hannah. So, folks, introduce you to a couple of these guys. He's fast asleep. I'm not disturbing him. Good. All right. So, just making sure. Obviously, he's asleep. He doesn't want to hear my big rumbling sounds. So, Dr. Alex Crease is one of our main vets, and he was our founding vet essentially, and helped set up the whole thing and how the procedures work and how we need to do things. We'll ask Alex a few questions in a second and learn a bit more about his background. And Nurse Hannah, as we like to call her, has had extensive experience as a wildlife carer, but is also a qualified vet nurse. And that combination of things is really, really important in understanding what an animal's natural behaviour is like. So before we meet these guys, we might just have a quick ask of Dr. Alex, what's on the table. I'll get out of the way and just ask a few questions. What have you got there?
So this is a bobok owl. It's one of the two species of owls that we have in Tasmania. So and this one was found on the road. It was hopping but unable to fly, and it has I can feel a fracture on the humerus on the left wing. So we just it's anesthetized, we intubated, and so we can breathe for him, and we put a esophageal stethoscope there so that we can check the heart and how the heart is going while we are doing the initial assessment.
Beautiful. So, Dr. Alex, what would you say, so that for a sec, what would you say the prognosis is on this little guy, good or bad?
Look, he's quite bright. So I am cautiously optimistic. So we'll do a couple of x-rays now and give fluids and assess to see if this is a good candidate for surgery. So with broken wings in birds, there's a couple of things that we have to be mindful. So if the fracture is too close to the joint, to any joint, then it's we wouldn't attempt surgery. In this one, it does seem to be quite in the middle of the bone, so I need to confirm that with the X-rays to see if that's a good fracture, if that is such a thing.
And just very quickly, because we don't want to hold you up too much, obviously, with so much to do. Your background, what did you do prior to this? What's your training?
So I'm a vet from Brazil, and I came to Australia and I did a PhD here with the Devils and the Tasmanian Devils, and they have this horrendous cancerous tumor on their face. So I did some research on the immunology of the tumor and the immune system of the Devils, and then decided to come back to practice.
Wonderful, thank you, Dr. Allen. Hannah, very quickly, what's it like working with wildlife directly as compared to in a standard clinic, and what do you see as the advantages of having a wildlife-only clinic?
Working with wildlife is a lot different to working with domestic animals. There's a lot more you need to consider with their stress, and obviously when we're seeing wildlife, we're seeing a lot more traumatic injuries, things that you probably wouldn't see in a regular domestic clinic. What was the question?
No, that's all. I think that answers it very nicely. So we'll go for a bit more of a wonder. Thank you, guys. We'll check back in on you in a little bit and see how this went and see how we go. All right, just 1 second there. I'm just going to turn the stroll. All right. All right, folks, so we're just going to go and meet a couple of little Chris's now. So we'll just head our way out. So this is a great time for any questions. Beck, if you want to throw any questions at me as we go for a stroll.
Yeah, sure. We've got a few coming through. Just to remind people, if they do want to ask questions, down the bottom of the, there's a Q&A feature, so just pop them in there. We have some kids online who'd like to know what the most dangerous animal is that you've helped.
Excellent. Sorry, Beck, I'm just putting it right up to my ear. I can't hear you very well, unfortunately, but I think it was one of the most dangerous animals that we help. Look, we're pretty lucky, to be honest, in Australia. well, particularly in Tassie, we don't deal with really big animals. Okay, so I think some places are dealing with things like rhinoceroses and elephants and all sorts of different things. Whereas for us, I guess we're dealing with a few poisonous things from time to time, but they're really not these aggressive animals people think they're going to be. So to be honest, in Australia, the most dangerous animal to work with is a cassowary, which is basically a very big, colourful ostrich-like creature that can kick. So we're pretty lucky here.
And you mentioned before when you were talking about predators and so forth, Blair Smith wanted to know, are you saying Tassie doesn't have any foxes, and what non-Indigenous pests are affecting fauna in Tasmania?
Wonderful, thank you. So yeah, look, we're very, very lucky here. I'm just going to give the camera back to Melissa there to hold on me. Thank you. So we're very lucky to not have foxes here in Tasmania. Look, there's a lot of debate as whether they have been here or they haven't been here in the past. We really don't know 100% to be honest, but a lot of evidence that they had been at some stage, but certainly never took hold. So the fox is the most efficient predator on the planet behind people. So just their introduction here would see the extinction of approximately 75 species probably within 10 years. So it would be just a disaster. But like so many other places in the world, domestic dogs that become feral are certainly an issue, but our biggest one is definitely cats, feral cats, but also domestic cats. And I think it's important to note it really doesn't matter where you are in the world, responsibly looking after our pets is just so important. And it's in the top 3 reasons that we see animals coming through here. So cars being number 1, most definitely. But cat attacks are just a major, major issue. And, you know, I think we do need to analyse the impact just one cat can have, and making sure we keep our pets indoors or well contained so they're not killing things is really, really important.
Right. And there was another question about how are animals found and brought into the clinic?
Yeah, wonderful. So sorry, I have to keep going to the speaker. I think it's my speaker, to be honest, but I apologise for that. So yeah, look, all sorts of ways that they're found, of course, but look, vehicles are a really big issue here because we have so much wildlife here. There's always grass on the side of the road. There's just so many animals hit by cars here. So they estimate between 500,000 and 1 million animals killed on our roads every single year in Tasmania. So that's about 40% of the rescues that we see. But look, if there's a way an animal can hurt itself, they seem to find that way. It's just incredible. I think every time we think that we've seen it all, we see new issues. So whether it's animals getting stuck in oil drums, or we had a possum recently up the mast of a boat in the middle of a bay. I mean, all sorts of strange situations. But fishing line is one that's always worthy of a mention. We have a seabird rehab facility here as well, and the amount of animals caught up in fishing line and seabirds with fish hooks stuck inside them and plastic ingestion is just a major, major issue as well. And then dog and cat attacks would certainly be our top 3, and then everything in between, whether it's secondary poisoning, getting caught in fences, just an incredible amount of things. All right, Kim, what we might do, Beck, we might just quickly meet one of our little creatures and have a few more questions in a moment. Just as I'm getting in here, Beck, just to confirm, is the sound quality okay from my end?
Yeah, there's a few people saying it's you need to talk closer to the mic, but...
Okay, no worries.
Yeah.
As loud as I can. Oh.
Thanks,
She's a bit wriggly this morning. Oh, dear me. All right, let me introduce you to this little lady here. She's a bit of a troublemaker. We'll see how long she can actually stay there. But this is a little Tasmanian devil. Her name is Callie. Her mum died of facial tumour disease, which is a nasty disease that's been killing devils all over Tassie for about 25 years and has sadly now rendered them endangered. So because she's a baby that's been hand-raised, she likes to eat me. Okay, she's only playing, but she doesn't know her own strength sometimes. But you'll see she's very wriggly and always trying to latch on to some sort of clothing or something like that, just like she would her mother. Okay, so she's just having a bit of a play and enjoying herself. But they are a very, very misunderstood animal, which is why we think it's so important to share this side of them. That even though her jaw strength is the strongest of any animal in the world compared to body size, she still can be very, very gentle. Now, these animals are not hunters, they're scavengers. Okay, so her main job is to go around and eat carcasses, essentially, and clean up the forests. That is her job. She's not a very good hunter. She will try to be a good hunter, but sadly doesn't have those hunting skills. So the first issue for a devil is they're very, very slow. The average top speed of a devil is about the same as a chicken, so about 14 kilometres an hour. They have very poor eyesight and their agility is not good at all. Okay, so as a scavenger, what they are very good at is, number one, they can travel very long distances. So they've been recorded travelling over 50 kilometres in one night looking for food. So an extraordinary endurance. Their sense of smell is brilliant. They can smell food from about 2 kilometres away, so really good sense of smell. And on top of that, the jaw strength means they don't waste any food. So you're looking at about a tonne of pressure per cubic inch in those jaws, so very, very powerful. And they have the ability to gorge feed. So they can eat about 40% of their body weight in a sitting. That was a bit rough there, wasn't it? Okay, so they can really gorge themselves and then go for a number of days without food. So that works very well for them as a scavenger. Now, probably the most fascinating thing about them for me is their breeding. When a Tassie devil is born, it's only the size of 1 grain of rice. So absolutely tiny. The pregnancy is only 18 to 21 days. The mother will give birth to some 20 to 40, that's right, 20 to 40 young. So an army of these little grains of rice are born, but a maximum of 4 can survive. Okay, there are only 4 spots inside the pouch. They do have a pouch like a kangaroo. Okay, so it's a real survival of the fittest, absolute challenge from the second they're born just to even make it to mum's pouch, where they'll spend about 11 months or so with mum before she hoofs them out and gets ready to breed again, and then they're completely solitary from there. Okay, and just very briefly, so we can go meet another animal as well, this little girl does not realise how important she is. There's been a real issue with orphaned Tasmanian devils, developing cataracts in their eyes when they've been raised, and we're not sure why that is. It's something to do with nutrition, but no one knows what. So what we need to do with this girl, and why we've kept her so friendly instead of raising her for release back to the wild, is we'll be working with the university here in the Save the Tasmanian Devil program to try and develop a devil-specific formula to hand raise orphan devils. So this little girl will hopefully breed when she stops behaving like a 2-year-old. She will hopefully breed. And then what we can do, because she's so friendly, is just take milk samples every 2 weeks. We can analyse the composition of that milk, and we can try to then replicate that composition and develop a devil-specific formula to hopefully save hundreds and hundreds of lives in the future. So she might be very cute, but she does not know how important she is at this stage. So fingers crossed that that all goes well. It'll be probably about a 2 or 3 year project to get that up and running. But what that'll mean is we'll see really small little devils that are currently euthanized if they're found very small being able to be raised, which is very exciting. All right, this little wriggly worm, I'm going to put her back down because she's being an absolute menace, and we'll head to another one. Oh, dearie me. That is not easy, I can tell you. All right, what we might do, we might head to the wombats next, I think. I might take that and do a quick swap around again so we can have some questions. All right, ready for another question there, Beck?
Yeah, great. That was very well timed. We had lots of questions about the Tasmanian devils and the facial tumour disease, so I think you've answered quite a few of those. People want to know, obviously, the impact of the bushfires and how that impacted Tasmania, and I guess even now how COVID is impacting you as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Look, the bushfires were, I mean, they were probably what you saw on the telly. Really, they were incredibly hot. You know, unfortunately, climate change is a very, very real thing, and we are seeing the effects of that every single year. And even in Tassie, we're seeing things like fires in rainforests, which haven't seen fires for hundreds and hundreds of years because it's just so dry, and just one little lightning strike setting it off. So the fires are burning hotter than they ever have before. And, you know, a fire like that, that's moving that quickly and, you know, 30, 40 metres in height, just barreling along nothing in that path is going to survive, unfortunately. So really every single animal can be affected by that quite badly. So look, some animals like wombats might take a bit of refuge underground, but then when they come back out, they might burn their little feet. But look, when fires burn that hot, there's not a huge amount of animals that you can really try and save, because so many of them, unfortunately, will, if they're still alive, will not be able to be saved. The injuries will just be too severe. And of course, for others that are close enough, they don't even get through the original incident. So all over Australia, we're seeing issues like that. We've had some really big fires here in the last handful of years, which we've done the recovery for, the main one a few years back. But yeah, look, it's just a case of course, making sure there's teams on the ground to try and get in there and help when it happens, and help put food out and stuff for animals to recover. But really, no animal is safe in a situation like that when it is just so hot. It's just an incredible thing, and very, very sad to see.
And how about with the COVID situation? How's that impacting you guys in the centre and being able to rescue and treat those animals? Yeah, look, another great question. There's obviously been, I'm just going to turn this around and give this to, oh, actually, yeah, you grab him first, sorry. So yeah, obviously for us, what's really important for us is we're funded very much by our guests that come through. So while we're a sanctuary here, we're very much not a zoo. We don't import animals, or we don't collect animals. All the animals that are here for a reason. So for example, the devil's over there, and we have some that have been hit by cars and things like that. We have tawny frogmouths that are blind in one eye. We have echidnas that are missing legs after dog attacks. So we're sort of a sanctuary for animals that can't go back. Our number one aim is to get things back out in the wild where they belong. So of course, for us, COVID's just meant a massive drop of income. So that can be obviously a little bit of a challenge. But look, this is where groups like IFAW have just been so crucial to helping us out and making sure that the animals aren't forgotten, because I think it's really important we don't forget animals. And look, interestingly, for the animals in the wild, they've probably had a small reprieve without lots of tourists and things visiting. We've probably seen less rescues than we've seen in the last 4 to 5 years, because people just aren't out and about as much. And like everywhere else, we're seeing animals pop up in a few places we haven't seen them for a long time. So nice for them to get a bit of a break. And look, hopefully we can learn a bit from that and sort of go, well, hang on, we're taking away humans and animals are doing quite well. Maybe we can learn about that. And whether that's looking at, some beaches around the world that we classify as human-free beaches, so animals can have their space, or, areas of national park that we classify as true national park that really are then only for the animals. I think there's a lot we can learn from it. And, we've all just got to work together to make sure, no matter where it is in the world, that it's not a case of going, well, animals, we can't afford them. We can't afford to help them, because animals still get hurt. They still need help. And most of the time it's going to be caused by us as humans. So we have that responsibility. So I'll probably have one more question, Beck, and then we'll grab a little wombat. Sure. What about marine species? Are you seeing many, do you treat many marine species? Yeah, that's a great one. Look, in Tassie, we are obviously surrounded by water, so we have an incredible amount of marine species around us, and whales passing by and all sorts of things. I'll be honest, I've never looked after a whale. That's not my forte. No, we're pretty lucky that we have a good marine team in Tasmania. It's one of the few numbers that the government does run, where they can assist with things like seals and whales and things. But all the seabirds, the penguins, all those sorts of things do come to us. So we've seen all sorts of different penguins from New Zealand is not too far away. So we see New Zealand Fiordland penguins. We see snares penguins, which come from New Zealand and need care. We see little penguins would be our most common. And all the seabirds, albatross, giant petrels, the tiny little petrels that are really beautiful. 2/3 of the world's shearwaters come and nest in Tasmania every year, and a whole lot of them come stumbling out needing food. So we might see 70 or 80 of them in the space of just a couple of weeks that need care. So lots of marine-based animals being an island. And again, seabirds and shorebirds, they just don't seem to get the attention that the cute, fluffy ones do when they really need it. I think we love beaches. I think everyone around the world loves beaches, but we forget that those are also habitats for wildlife, and they can be very easily disturbed if we're driving our cars around them or letting our dogs roam around them and that sort of thing. All right, I'm going to do a quick swap here. I'll just have to put the camera down for a moment because we're going to do a wombat change. One sec. There we go.
All right. Come nice and close so you can hear. Beautiful. All right, I'd like to introduce you to Tatey. So, this little lump of gorgeousness, this is a wombat, okay, a common wombat. Now, this little guy here, his mum was hit by a car, which is why he's here. We have so many animals here with pouches. So not just our kangaroos, which of course are the most famous one, but most of our animals with fur and fluff here have a pouch for their babies. So many, many marsupials. So what that provides for us is an amazing opportunity to save lives. When a mum is hit by a car or attacked by a dog or whatever it might be, we have this great opportunity to take a youngster from a pouch and hand raise that animal to go back to the wild. And look, for most of them, of course, it's very much minimal contact. You must have a snooze. You feed them, you clean them, and you leave them. Okay, but for animals like this one here, this guy will actually be released back to the wild. Now, I know at the moment he's very friendly, and you sort of might be thinking to yourself, well, maybe that's not the right way to sort of handle them or deal with them if they are going back to the wild. But wombats fall into a very unique category where they basically need attention. Okay, if you don't give them attention as their mother would, then they don't thrive. They don't put on weight, they get sick, they show signs of illness and disease. So we have to hand raise this little fella, give him a bit of a cuddle and a play so he doesn't stress out. What's the most amazing thing though is, even though he's like this now, in about 6 months' time, he'll be the most dangerous animal in the entire place. Okay, yes, snakes are dangerous, but they just don't come anywhere near you. Okay, whereas this guy here, when he becomes independent, he needs to tell his mother that, and he does that by attacking her. Okay, so he'll do exactly the same thing to us. He'll headbutt us, he'll bite us, he'll claw us. He'll do whatever he can to let us know that he's ready to go back to the wild. And then it's our job from there to find a suitable release site and to pop him back out there again. This is a very close relative of the koala as well, this little guy. You can probably see that with his cute little fluffy face. Now, he's wanted to go down for a play, so follow me. There we go, silly. What are you doing there? All right, so these little guys are fairly non-stop. They, especially at this age, we've got a much smaller one at the moment we're raising as well, but this guy here is just an absolute barrel of beans at this age, especially being a boy. So yeah, he's just had his breakfast put in there, so he's very keen to get over there and have a snack. But look, he's at the moment just refining his skills. He's learning to dig big long burrows that he'll need to deal with in the wild. He's learning his defense and how he does that, how to mark out his territory. And then when he turns and becomes wild, he'll be a totally different animal that will literally just attack us and just want nothing to do with us. So they are probably the most successful sort of furred animal, marsupial, of any animal in Tasmania that we raise and release. They do the best upon release back to the wild. So they do really, really well. All right, we might take a question or two there. I'll do a quick flick.
Greg, there's some questions about mange and if you're treating any wombats with mange.
Yeah, look, absolutely. That's a great question. So mange, look, it's been really strange. We're not quite sure exactly what's going on with mange, but we do know that mange has been around in Tasmania since Europeans arrived here. So it's been around for a very long time. But for some reason, there's been this massive, absolutely massive increase in Tasmania particularly, but other places in Australia as well, where even though their numbers haven't significantly dropped overall, what we're seeing is some areas like Narantipoo National Park where over 95% of the population has gone. So really, really disappointing sort of numbers. And for those that don't know what mange is, it's a small mite that gets under the skin and it eats and lives off the hair follicles. And so these animals wind up sadly very furless. They often go blind. They're very itchy and they scratch those itches and then they wind up all infected. And look, treating it is very, very difficult. So what we are doing at the moment is working with a fantastic researcher by the name of Scott Carver, who's doing some trials with a new drug, which we're hoping will be an absolute game changer. So the hospital's been involved in that research and our vets, who a number of them have a research background, have been working with that team. And look, hopefully this is a drug that can be rolled out all across Australia to see them able to be treated in the wild and hopefully give them some relief.
And there's quite a few people asking about koalas in Tasmania as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, our little wombat friend looks a fair bit like a koala, and he's the cousin of the koala, but he's the closest thing we have to a koala in Tasmania. We don't think koalas have ever been here in Tasmania, so there's no fossil evidence to suggest that they were ever here. And the reason it's thought that's the case is Bass Strait, which is the water mass between Tasmania and mainland Australia. It's thought when that was above ground that it was very, very thick, swampy gums. And koalas are very fussy about what sort of food they eat. So it almost would have been a wall of no food, which sort of prevented them coming to Tassie in the first place. There's a lot of fantastic food here for them, and they do really well if they were here. However, they've never been here before. So certainly no koalas on our repertoire of animals we need to rescue. And they're not the cute, cuddly things you think they are either. They're very aggressive, nasty little beasts at times. So I'm not overly concerned we don't have to rescue too many of them, but obviously they have their own struggles on the mainland as well.
And there's a really interesting question about is illegal wildlife trade impacting Tasmania?
Yeah, great question. I'll just turn the camera around there. There we go. Thank you. Yeah, look, the wildlife trade, that happens all over the world. I think Tasmania is fairly sheltered from it, and we're really, really, really lucky for that. But, you know, there's certainly been cases that have been found out around people, you know, getting reptiles and things like that and trying to ship them around the place. But, look, our animals wouldn't be easy to sort of transport to other places or anything like that. So we are very, very sheltered compared to other places, you know, that have massive problems with it. And it's not just small. And I'm sure a lot of you will be aware of IFAW's magnificent work in that space as well. But in Tassie, thankfully, we are very sheltered from it and don't see a lot of it. But, you know, just like anywhere else, there's still things that are illegally imported, which quite often we're the ones who work with the government on helping those animals out or housing them till they can be shipped back to where they came from or anything along those lines, or vet checks and things like that. But we are quite sheltered from it, which is great. So I'll have one more question, Beck, and then I'll introduce you to these little guys.
There's a question about Tasmanian tigers. I guess a bit of... Yeah.
Tassie tigers, always a favourite topic of mine, absolutely. Tassie tigers, so for those that aren't aware what a Tassie tiger is or was, basically a very large carnivorous marsupial, not very large, about the size of, I guess, a border collie sort of dog or a Labrador dog, so not as big as people thought, but essentially they were our highest order predator or our apex predator all the way around Australia, but sadly they became extinct sometime in the last sort of 100 years, I guess. Well, 1936, the last known one died in captivity. Look, personally, I believe they are now extinct, sadly, but I believe up until the 70s, 1970s, I reckon they were still around. A lot of really credible sightings and really fantastic evidence that they were about. But the truth is the Tassie tiger is just a tragic story we need to learn from. It's a hunter that was quite often wrongfully blamed for killing livestock and had a bounty put on its head and was largely shot to extinction with probably a bit of disease as well that helped wipe them out. But just a terrible, terrible scenario that the impact we had on them so quickly. And as you all know, a higher order predator is so important for a healthy ecosystem. They take out the weak, the sick and the injured, and they keep whole other species sort of strong. You only have to look at Yellowstone National Park and the reintroduction of the wolves into Yellowstone National Park and how that fixed the entire landscape, including even how the rivers run in the area because of the grazing animals that were then kept at bay. It's incredible how important they are. So we won't feel the impacts of losing that predator for a number of years yet. We see bits of it already, but we probably won't see it for a lot longer. But look, you can always live in hope. I love to think there might still be a few out there, but sadly I don't think there are anymore. All right, a quick introduction to our tawnies, and then we're going to head back down to the clinic to check in on them there. All right, so here we have some tawny frogmouths. I'll get out of the way. You can go nice and close. So these guys here, they might look very much like an owl, but they're actually not owls. Their closest family that they live with are the nightjar family. Now, these guys here design themselves to look like a tree. So these ones are very, very relaxed with people, so they're not doing their defense pose. But when they're threatened, they'll elongate themselves and they'll sort of perch out at a 45-degree angle off the tree, and the little bits of feather just sitting on top of the beak are designed to look like a snapped off piece of tree. Okay, so they will absolutely disappear into the tree and potential predators won't spot them. Now, the way these guys hunt is they use their mouth and they swoop around and they take prey straight out of midair. So they have a very, very large mouth. But unfortunately, the things they prey upon are attracted to car headlights. So what tends to happen is they'll be hunting a moth or an insect. The insect goes straight to the car headlights. They're right behind them hunting and they get hit by cars. So these ones here all have sight issues. So they are blind in one eye. And unfortunately, this means that they can't hunt in the wild. Now, not every animal, bring me back in there. All right, so not every animal that comes in from the wild that can't be released is a suitable candidate to live in captivity. And I think that's something really, really important to mention. In fact, less than 1% of the animals we rescue actually wind up staying with us permanently here at the sanctuary. Most adult animals that are really badly injured and can't survive in the wild, even if they could survive here, would live a life of absolute misery. And I think it's really important that that animal is still serving a purpose. These guys here, they tame down really, really quickly. And as you can see, no defense poses, totally comfortable, and they breed here, which gives us an opportunity to release their young back to the wild and assist them to achieve what they wanted to in their journey in life, which is to pass on their genetics. So look, there's unfortunately a lot of animals that can't be saved with what we do, but you know, the ones that can stay with us and we can provide that permanent home, we absolutely love doing that, and it gives us a great opportunity. And these are absolutely one of those species. All right, we'll head our way back towards the clinic. I'm going to steal that and we'll have a few more questions on the way there.
There's a really interesting one here from Natalie. She says, in your 15 years experience, what was the most remarkable comeback you've witnessed?
Oh, gee, that's a wonderful question. These are the ones that make me get all bubbly down the backbone. We've seen some incredible things. We see them every single day, to be honest. Now that we've got IFAW Hospital here, the chance to have these incredible heartwarming stories just happen time after time after time. And, you know, it's not always the endangered species, I guess, that are the most important ones to you. But in this case, it is an endangered species. I'll mention it's only fairly recent too that myself and Melissa, who's helping me here with the camera work, you've probably seen flashes of her today. We raised two little Tasmanian devils, and now those little guys were, they came in at 45 grams in size, so they literally fit in just a tiny little ball in the palm of your hand. Technically, you can't raise them until they're 100 grams, but we got special permission to try a couple of formulas and fix the cataract issue. So they needed feeding every 3 hours, but took 2 hours to feed. So it was a fairly challenging set of circumstances where you get an hour's sleep at a time to look after them. But no one thought they would survive, including us. And thankfully, they're still here with us today, and hopefully we'll be part of this program to develop formula to help others out. So just remarkable to see a marsupial at that size, which is basically embryonic, and give it that second opportunity.
And I know you've mentioned a couple of times bits and pieces about the work that you guys do with conservation and release programs, but just any links between what you do at the sanctuary in Tasmania and also any of that goes on in the mainland.
Yeah, look, absolutely. So again, of course, our number one aim is to see things go back out into the wild. So not only are we sort of saving, I guess, individual animals and giving them that chance, but breeding for release is a really good opportunity. So some of the Tassie devils we work with will be released back to the wild, particularly orphan ones. But probably the most exciting one to mention is the Eastern Quoll program that we've been involved in. I actually have a feeling the Eastern Quoll is what's next on the table. I might get you to check they're ready as well. So I think that's what we might see in a second, albeit in a very sleepy state. But the Eastern Quoll is a small carnivorous marsupial, very closely related to a Tasmanian devil. 4 species of quoll in Australia, and they're all in decline. But this little guy is only in Tasmania and only became extinct on the mainland in the early 70s. So a really good opportunity to reintroduce them before the environment changes too much without them there. So that's been about a 4 or 5 year program, and some have now been released back to the wild. We've sent about 40 up to the program, and what we're probably most proud of is we have not taken one animal from the wild for that breeding program either, which is really fantastic. We've just had ones that have come in with various injuries, so hip injuries, head injuries, they might be missing legs after injuries, and we've managed to make them sort of friendly and comfortable to the point that they've bred, and they're the ones that we've used for the program. So great to be involved in something like that, but obviously just supporting other research. We've recently had some collars put on some of our little hand-raised devils, looking at proximity studies. So how often they interact with each other, what that would mean for the spread of facial tumour disease. And interestingly, it's not unlike the whole COVID situation, really. It's all about social distancing for them. So, you know, ways we can help programs like that too. And again, using the IFAW clinic is really fantastic to do that.
And have you got any stats on how many animals have been through the clinic that have been treated and released?
Yeah, wonderful. Look, it's very, very hard to know. I mean, look, on a day, those two in there, they're just maniacs. It's incredible what they get done in a day. They might see some 20 to 25 animals every day that's open. And I'm sure a lot of you have had pets before and understand the cost of going to a vet, even for an hour-long appointment or surgery or something like that. So, look, thankfully, the amount we can get done at the price that we do here is quite astonishing, and they just work so hard. So 20 to 25 odd animals a day are treated in there. We obviously deal with a lot more, but not all of them need the hospital. We have a lot of staff that are almost veterinary trained, really, with the skills they have, and can do minor treatments. It's the major ones that require surgeries and things that wind up in the hospital. The challenge is we lose track of how many of them go back to the wilds, because we're sort of like the first response. We look after them, get them to the point they're going to survive. Then we give them to volunteer wildlife carers who do the rest of the work, and we don't really know the result from there. They liaise with the government on where to release and how to release and all that sort of jazz. So, look, very hard for us to know, but essentially nearly every animal that winds up in that clinic has passed its original tests and got a pretty good chance of pulling through with a bit of hard work. So I'd like to think the stats are pretty high. You're good in there? All right. Yeah, no worries. All right. So I'll just have one more question as we wander in there, Beck.
Oh, there was just another question about the fires and what the impact was of the recent fires on Tasmania, or if they were just mostly impacting the mainland.
Yeah, no worries at all. Yeah, look, the mainland had the big ones this time around. We had quite a few down here. So we had some not too far from here, actually, probably a 20-minute drive that took off. And we had, very sadly, a whole lot in the southwest, which is very much protected wilderness and nearly impossible to put out the flames. And look, very sadly down there, you've got communities of trees that will probably never, ever recover again, pencil pines and things like that. So look, Tassie, our biggest one was a few years back at a place called Dunalley, and that was a huge fire that took off. But obviously with the size of mainland Australia, the fires over there were a lot bigger. And look, I think also the species on the mainland probably mean that there is a bit more work from the fires there. So, for example, with the fires down here, we don't see the number of animals they do up there, and a lot of them are in a pretty bad way. So a lot of your costs are more around the recovery for animals coming back in that need food and water. And of course, a lot of costs around just trying to find those animals that can't be saved and take on the ones that we can. But burns are incredibly hard to treat. And very expensive to treat as well, I might add, with their sheer amount of vet attention and things that they need. So, you know, certainly I know a lot of the wildlife places, both Tassie and on the mainland, were very grateful for any support that they received for that. Because look, for the odd one that can survive, it's got one hell of a road ahead of it to get there. All right, we're going to check back in on the clinic again now and see what we've got on the table. We've got a quoll? Yeah, we've got a quoll there. So the little spotted animal that I mentioned to you before is in there now. So we're going to have a quick look at him, and then I'll tell you a little bit more. There we go. Get that for me. Thank you. All right, I'll take the camera here and we'll just take you back in to check in. First of all, how did you go with the boo-book?
Yeah, he does have a fracture on the left wing. It's, I guess it's good and bad news. The good news is that it's a nice fracture to fix, but the bad news is that there is a wound on the patagium. The patagium is that membrane between the shoulder and the wrist, and that's a very important structure in birds. It's an elastic tissue, and it doesn't have the best healing powers. So we will try to. So the bone itself, the fracture itself, is not that challenging to fix. I think the patagium, that soft tissue injury, is more challenging. So we give fluids and pain relief, antibiotics. It's an open fracture. So it's in the humidity crib at the moment, recovering from the anesthesia. So it's kind of like an incubator, little incubator where they can wait and be warm. And he will go for surgery in the afternoon. Wonderful, sounds good. And tell us about this little guy. So this is an eastern quoll. So that's a carnivorous marsupial. It's related to Tasmanian devils. And the interesting thing about these animals is that they are native to Tasmania, and now they are endemic to Tasmania. So they once lived on the mainland as well in Australia, but they were extinct because of foxes there. So I think the last records on the mainland were from the 60s. But they are present here in Tassie. And this, and we've had a group of quolls from an area here that came very anemic, full of parasites, and we have wounds on the tail. So we are just monitoring them. They have recovered for the most part, and today is just a recheck. So this one has been in care since the 6th of June, so nearly 2 months in care. So, and hopefully he will be well soon enough. And I'm just looking at the tire at the moment, and I think it might need another week or two, and we'll be able to release him back. Wonderful, thank you very much. All right, I'll pop that on you there. All right, so folks, we'll just head back out the front so we don't disturb these guys too much while they do their work. But yeah, that's one of those little animals I mentioned that we're working to release back to the wild. So very exciting. And the one that Alex mentioned there, we have had some successes. So from a place called Bruny Island that we've had so many of them coming in, and it's this strange parasite burden. So we've already seen a couple go back, which is really exciting. Only one hasn't pulled through, and being an endangered species, every single one counts. So there's a few more here as well. But as you can see, 2 months of veterinary care essentially to get that animal to this point, and probably another couple of weeks care, which is all made possible. We'll head back out the front there. There's a swan hissing at me from that box down there as our next patient on the list. All right, so folks, just to sort of, I guess, sort of wrap up from our end. I know it's a bit of a power tour, and we've raced around and done okay. Look, I hope the quality of the footage has been okay, and I'm sorry about the mic issues from my end. You've probably seen enough close-ups of my ear that you never want to see an ear ever again, so I could hear Beck's question. But look, I hope it really did give you a little taste of some of the work that we do and why it is so important. Obviously, that's just 2 of literally 25 animals on their list today, 5 of which are endangered that they're dealing with today. So, it's an incredible amount that they really do get done in one day. But to sort of mention what the future holds from here,
look, obviously COVID's had a great impact on us financially and our ability to be able to do some of the things that we'd like to do. And our number one aims were to make sure the rescue service didn't slow down at all, to make sure the hospital kept running at full capacity, and to make sure our staff, which are so crucial to these animals surviving, were able to stay and work with us. Those were our only three goals, really, and willing to do whatever we needed to get to that point. And look, to be honest, it was a matter of seconds before IFAW came to us and said, hey, are you okay? More importantly, are the animals okay? And what can we do to help? I just cannot tell you how refreshing it is to have an organisation that you don't have to chase them at all. You don't need to beg, you don't need to plead. They see the value in what we do and you know, approach us to make sure that we can give very best practice to these animals. And I just cannot tell you what it has been like in Tasmania for so many years without a hospital like this one behind us and without the support of someone like IFAW. I literally shudder now when I think 10 years back to the amount of animals that probably could have been saved had we had this facility, to the amount of animals that have probably suffered absolutely needlessly while we had to just wait and see if they got better or worse. You know, when if we just had these facilities, we could have done those tests and seen that an animal was too far gone or that it was worth a shot. So look, I knew this would achieve incredible things. I had no idea it would achieve this much. And not only has IFAW sort of sponsored the beginnings and the making of the clinic, hence the name being named after IFAW in there, but the ongoing support of funding the staff is the single most important thing that we need. And let me tell you, there's so many organisations that we've approached in the past to help us with wages, because look, it's fantastic having this great facility, fantastic having all this great machinery to help the animals out. If you can't afford to pay the people to work the machinery at the end of it, it's useless having it. The single most important thing in wildlife care is the people that are doing it. And when we explained that to IFAW, and that was our biggest limitation, they were just so quick to say, well, it's not about what it's funding, it's about the results. And I think that is so often forgotten in spaces like this. And look, that's why hands down IFAW has been our favourite organisation to work with from the very beginning, and we're really excited about the partnerships and more importantly, the animals that we're saving going forward. And look, just to bring that back to all of you guys, IFAW is nothing without all of you guys that give that support. You know, make sure you take the time to jump on their website and have a look at just the sheer array of stuff that they're doing. It is the most big-hearted business I've certainly come across before, and we're just almightily proud and honoured in many regards to be seen as worthy of working with IFAW. So to all of you that have donated and, you know, especially kept donating during this COVID time and are ongoing supporters of IFAW, you know, I just can't thank you enough. You know, you don't always have to be the person on the front line to kick the goals, but make sure you do take the time to have a think about where your donations go and where your support does go, because you are a really important part of everything that they achieve. And, you know, I hope you can continue to support them. And just as important, share the word about IFAW. Make sure other people know about them. Make sure they know what you are supporting, so they in turn can help support as well. And, you know, from me personally, from our staff here, but most importantly from the animals that IFAW has saved, you know, I just can't thank you enough. And to all of you guys, just can't thank you enough. So thanks so much for your time. I'll hand back over to you, Beck, and of course any questions that you want answered after this, we can try and email back over the next week. More than happy to do so, and we really look forward to catching up with you all in person one day when you come to visit us. So thanks very much, and over to you, Beck.
Thank you so much, Greg. I can't thank you enough to you and the team there today for taking our supporters around your amazing facility and giving us a bit of a behind the scenes on what happens in the day of the life of the clinic as well. I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone that has joined today from wherever you are in the world. I know I was seeing quite a lot of comments of people that have actually had the opportunity to visit Bonorong, and you know, it's wonderful that we've had supporters have that opportunity in the past, and hopefully this has given you a real taste of what we're able to achieve, and we can only achieve that with the support of our supporters and that generosity. And it's not just for these programs here in Australia, but but across the world. So thank you so very much for all your questions. I know we didn't get to them all. We've got a team of people and that are going to come back to you. And also, we'll be sending out a link. It was recorded, this session was recorded, so we'll be able to send out that link to you, and please feel free to share that with friends and family as well. Thank you very much from wherever you are in the world. Stay safe and healthy, and we look forward to sharing more of these tours with you going forward. Have a great day.